Bet you were probably thinking that you were only going to get Maul today in terms of like Star Wars related content on May the 4th, but no, 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 my friends. We need to get back into the grind because, well, one, we only have a couple weeks left before the movie, but two, it has been a little bit since I talked about this show. So let's dive back into this, shall we? Of course, my name is Daniel Strung. This is QuickTime Reactions, and you join me on my way to the Mandalorian and Grogu, in which I'm going to be reviewing all three seasons of The Mandalorian as well as Book of Boba Fett. And today, we are going to be talking about the Book of Boba Fett, Episode 3, which is entitled The Streets of Mos Espa. The writer and director combo is similar to what we had for episode 1. The director of the episode was Mr. Robert Rodriguez, and the writer being Mr. Jon Favreau. Boba is sensing tension in the region because, he's not really viewed as daimyo quite yet. He hasn't quite earned that. And so there may be some allegiances that are maybe conspiring against him. Well, Boba decides maybe to start building his own, and to weave out who will trust him or who he can trust versus who he can't. That all goes down this episode. So I really like this episode. And I'll get to that actually here in a little bit. But we open up at Jabba's palace. 8D8, who is the droid, kind of who I'm going to refer to as the welcoming droid, tells Boba the history of what happened with Mos Espa. After the events of Return of the Jedi with Jabba's death, Bib Fortuna took over, and basically the city of Mos Espa was divided into 3 sections, with Bib having an uneasy alliance between all 3 of them while also lining the mayor's pockets. And now Boba's in charge, and now everyone doesn't really know how to operate because they don't know what type of leader Boba is going to be. They are interrupted by Lortha Peel, who is a water merchant, played by Stephen Root, who I believe is a comedian similar to Dave Pasquazi, who is the major domo to the mayor. And he comes in, trying to, play nice with Boba, saying, people are out there saying, they don't respect you. And I feel disrespected on your behalf. And of course, Boba cuts through all of that and says, what do you want? And he says, well, there's some hooligan kids that are stealing my water supply. And, these kids aren't normal kids. They, buy droid parts and modify their bodies. So if you take care of them, I will double the tribute to you. And so Boba makes his way to where who I'm going to be calling the modders are. And I can remember very distinctively these characters being hated when this first came out. Like, I don't think a lot of people took to them as well as I took to them. Because, I don't see, like, IP, driven stuff like Star Wars or anything that Disney makes, Marvel or something like that, I don't see it as rigid. Like, yes, there are guidelines to it, but the guidelines can be fluid enough if you make an interesting story or you have interesting characters. And to me, the modders are very interesting characters. These are guys that, you know, put droid parts on their body just to make them look cool. And funny enough, one of them is played by Sophiethatcher. And this was actually the first time, I think, that I saw Sophiethatcher. Because I still haven't watched Yellow Jackets, which I know she's in. I think later on in 2022, I would go to see a horror movie called The Boogeyman, which she was in. She was in Maxine as an effects artist. And she was in a movie that I just recently talked about, Companion, as well as being in other movies like Heretic, and I'm probably blanking on a couple of others. But I think this was the first time that I ever saw Sophiethatcher. And her character, which is named Drash, she is given Boba all of the sass in the world, basically saying, tell him to lower his prices for his water. A month's worth of our wages for just a week of water. That seems a little bit ridiculous. And she goes on to tell him that, there is no work here, daimyo. So what do you want us to do if we don't have the money to buy this water off of him? Off of his, exorbitant prices. And Boba makes the compromise. Well, you're going to come work for me. And, of course, this brings out Mr. Peel, and he is not happy about it. Because he's out 1,300 credits on the water. Boba decides, we're going to give you 5, and you're just going to forget all this happening. You're just going to consider it resolved. And, of course, Peel takes that, but, he's not necessarily happy about it. Afterwards, we have our flashback to when Boba was still a part of the Tusken Raider tribe, and he makes his way to Mos Eisley, where actually we see a couple of nods to the Mandalorian. One, we see someone putting a stormtrooper helmet on those pikes that we saw Mando see in episode, I believe, 5 of season 1 of the show. And we also see Pelemoto and the pit droids in the background as Boba makes his way into town, which I thought were really cool, interesting Easter eggs. But Boba is going in to meet with the Pike Syndicate. And the head of the Pike Syndicate is actually voiced by legendary voice actor Phil LaMarr. And, the head Pike is like, listen, I'm here to basically pay whatever it is you want me to pay. And Boba's like, I'm not the one that's going to be taking the payment. The payment is going to be going to the Tusken Raiders of the Dune Sea. And, of course, things get a little bit, tense a little bit between both of them. And, things come to a, not necessarily a stalemate, but kind of a agreement-disagreement type of deal. And so Boba makes his way back to camp, and he sees that the entire camp is gone. Everyone dead, all the housing gone, completely destroyed. Think of the the army in Mulan pulling up to the village that the Huns destroyed. That is essentially what happened. And so Boba takes it upon himself to burn everything. The gaffy sticks, even the kids' training gaffy stick, and even their bodies as well, including the chieftains. And so Boba then makes his way out into the desert as a nomad, but he is ripped out of this flashback by Chrysanthemum, who is there to basically try and assassinate him again. And he is almost successful in the fact that he's got Boba in a bear hug, but then the modders come in and basically cause enough of a distraction for Boba to kind of slip away. They lead Chrysanthemum into the throne room, and Fennec then uses the button on the throne to put Chrysanthemum into the Rancor pit to basically hold him there until, things can get sorted out. Of course, Fennec and Boba think that this is the work of the Hutts because, well, they think they're entitled to what Jabba left for them. And so Fennec's like, you just wait it out, because you've already made your next move. You have Chrysanthemum caged up. He's not going anywhere. You wait for them to make the next move. And apparently that next move is to be at the palace. And the Hutts basically say, hey, we sent Chrysanthemum to kill you. We're sorry about that. Here's this as a bit of restitution. And it is a Rancor. And the Rancor trainer is played by longtime Robert Rodriguez collaborator, Mr. Danny Trejo. And Boba's like, I'll accept this. And in return, you will leave Tatooine and no longer claim this, as Jabba's, remnants. And, they say, yeah, we're completely fine with that. Because what we didn't know is that someone else claimed this as their own. And so we don't want any war. That's going to be bad for business. We're going to go back to Hutta and just wait this out. And Boba also says, oh yeah, and also take Chrysanthemum back with you. And the Hutts are like, no, we're good. We don't need him. And so Chrysanthemum is set free by not only the Hutts, but also Boba as well. I wonder if we will see him again later on in the season. We'll have to wait and see. But Boba and Fennec want to try and get a word in with the mayor to see what on earth is going on. In the meantime, though, Boba is getting acquainted with his new Rancor. And Danny Trejo is explaining to Boba that, Rancors are very, very responsive to their owners. They form a bond with them on immediate sight. And he goes into a tale about, the witches of Dathomir riding them in forests and fens. And the witches of Dathomir actually are something that I think was in the Legends material, aka non-canonical, since the Disney buyout. But now with this, it's re-brought in. And we actually see some Dathomirian witches in the Ahsoka series, actually. So, right as Boba is wanting to learn how to ride this Rancor, 8D8 comes in and says, hey, the mayor is very busy. He's not going to be available for at least 20 days. Boba says, screw that, and heads into town and right to the mayor's office to see what on earth is going on. Of course, the Major Domo is there, and he's like, the mayor's pretty busy right now. And Fennec's like, well, you best choose your next words carefully if you want to be living at any point in the near future. And the Major Domo's like, actually, let me see if I can, rearrange the non-important meetings to see if we can squeeze you in. I'm going to be right back. And then he immediately locks the door and tries to make an escape. So then Boba sends the modders out to try and get the Major Domo. And this is another thing. They designed the modders' bikes to look like 60s era Vespas. So they're going to be bright. They're going to have a lot of chrome to them. And I remember that being another big turnoff for some people. And again, this is going to be another phrase that I bring up over and over and over again for this show. But how often do we see brightly colored things in Star Wars? Other than lightsabers? Other than blasters? How often? Not a lot. So I see this as refreshing that we get brightly colored vehicles, because everything else is white, tan, gray, black. Like, it's, you throw a little color into the palette other than like the lightsabers. So the chase for the speeder with the Vespa scooters is actually really, really well shot. I actually really enjoyed the chase sequence, and it ends with Drash basically hopping on top of one of the engines of the cruiser, spinning it out into a fruit stand, and Boba simply asks, "Where's the mayor?" And the Major Domo's really having no other place to go. He's like, he's talking with the Pikes. That's where he is. He's talking with the Pikes. And you see a whole lot of Pikes walk off of a Starliner luxury ship. And one of the modders reports back that there's at least a dozen of them that walked off that ship. And so Fennec and Boba decide that, yeah, they need to start recruiting people, and fast. And that is where the episode ends off. I really liked this episode, mainly because of all the new stuff that it kind of brought in. The concept of, the modders. And honestly, they look pretty cool, in my opinion. The scooters that they have also look really cool as well. Rodriguez's direction, especially during the Boba Chrysanthemum fight, as well as that speeder chase, I thought was really, really well done. And once again, Favreau's writing is solid, as always. But we are just a couple episodes away from what many people said back then was the show getting good. So we'll just have to wait and see what they meant by getting good. But until then, guys, be safe out there. And if you are wanting to enhance your body in any way, like, I'm not going to hold that against you. But just, like, know what you're doing before, actually doing that. Because, like, me personally, I don't want, like, a nose ring or, like, piercings in my, like, belly button or something like that. Or, a droid arm. I don't want anything like that. So I'm good the way that I am. So just be forewarned. Like, be sure what you're getting into whenever you go and, like, add things to your body. And I will catch you guys next time.